It's gonna be a barn burner. Welcome into another episode of the Run the Sims podcast. I'm your host, Adam Wilde, and we will be covering the Sunday night showdown slate. It's probably one of the most exciting ones that we're going to have the entire year. I'm in Maryland. I tried to go to this game. The tickets were way too expensive. So we have Baltimore at home, +4. So they're giving up 4 points at home against Kansas City, 54-point over under. And we have a few injuries to talk about. Nothing too terribly big, just your ancillary players on the Baltimore side of the ball. Devin Duvernay was limited in practice on Friday. Duvernay was somebody who was popping in a ton of sims last week when the Ravens were on the showdown slate. And basically, you're going to get some good salary relief in like James Proche or Tylan Wallace maybe, but Tylan Wallace is getting virtually no run even with injuries. Marquise Brown is off the injury report now, so that's huge. Good to see Sammy Watkins going into week 2 healthy. So nothing big there on the Ravens side of the ball. Let's go ahead and bring in the Run the Sim site because I have something extremely exciting to show you. Sorry for you listeners out there, you can't see right now, but we have projected ownership now, which is a huge piece of the puzzle that we did not have in the last 4 slates. So, for example, we have Patrick Mahomes projected to be rostered in 65% of the lineups, and he's projected to be in the captain spot 16% of the time. I'm going to be trying my best to distinguish between how many times a player is appearing in the optimal lineup in our 10,000 simulations and how often they're being rostered. So let's try not to get confused about that. We're on the player page currently, so we're talking about percent ownership. This is before we've run any simulations. Somebody that pops out to me is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is only at 21% total owned on rosters, and he's only at 6% captain. It's huge to get such a significant part of the Chiefs offense at such low ownership, but it's because Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are just so impossible to fade. So a big stance this week is, do you think Clyde Edwards can punch 1 or 2 in on the ground? If you do believe that, then Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a massive leverage play, especially at captain, because you've got Tyreek Hill projected to be in 26% of the lineups. That's really low too, but that's because so many people are going to be playing Mahomes, Kelce, and you're going to really struggle to get Mahomes, Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. So something I'm probably going to look to do this week to get a little different is just play Hill and Kelce without Mahomes, which is super weird and not something that you're going to do on basically any other slates. On Sunday, last Sunday, I played the showdown slate with the Browns and the Chiefs, and the winning lineup was a Kelce, Tyreek, with no Patrick Mahomes, because so much of that offense is just centered around those two players. It was kind of like how you only had 2 options in the Tennessee Titans offense last year, so you just kind of play them both, and you didn't necessarily need Tannehill. So that's another way we're going to look to get contrarian this week. We've got Lamar Jackson at 46 or 42% ownership, only 14% captain, a little bit less than Mahomes, but that's still reasonably high for a quarterback. Again, that's nothing close to what he was. I think he was 26% last showdown slate. Tyson Williams is only 18%. If you think he's going to get a bulk of the work in that backfield, pay up for him at 6,800 when Latavius Murray is only 5,200, projected to be owned 29%. Sammy Watkins at 26%. We get to our first injury. That's Devin Duvernay right now. If he plays, he's projected to go 29% owned. So a lot of that's going to transfer over to James Proche. Maybe you go down to you're probably not going to go all the way down to Tylan Wallace because James Proche is the same price, and he's the only person eating into Devin Duvernay's touches. Miles Boykin's still on IR. Rashad Bateman's still on IR. Nick Boyle looks to be injured. That could be a little bit more snaps for Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews is never going to get the blocking work. So let's go ahead and run the Sims. Analyzing the playbook here. Running. And we've got Patrick Mahomes in 72% of the lineups, Lamar Jackson in only 52% of the lineups. That's a huge disparity between starting quarterbacks, 20% disparity. Both of them are ending up in the captain or MVP at almost the exact same rate, 11.5% captain or MVP from Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. So it's almost pick your poison. You're going to really struggle to play both. So if you have to choose between either of them, you might go a Patrick Mahomes lineup. And how are you going to get different with a Patrick Mahomes lineup? You might be playing Mahomes, CEH, and Tyreek instead of Mahomes and Kelce and CEH, because Kelce is so much more owned than Tyreek Hill. Next, you come down to CEH. CEH is ending up in the captain spot at the exact same clip as the quarterbacks, 11.84%. That's actually higher than both quarterbacks. So like I said, before we ran the simulations, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a huge decision point. He's going to be a huge leverage play over Kelce and Hill, because Kelce is ending up in the captain spot 15% of the time. We know that's rare for a tight end. However, Travis Kelce is barely human, let alone a tight end. Tyreek Hill is ending up in the captain spot 13% of the time. So that's all 5 of those players are above 10% in the captain spot. That's very unique, and that means basically your captain spot should just be revolving around Mahomes, Jackson, CEH, Kelce, and Hill before you get down to Mecole Hardman at 9% and Mark Andrews at 9%, and then a huge drop off to Tyson Williams at 4.8%. So you're kind of playing with fire there. You're going to have to just try to revolve around those top 5 and then get contrarian elsewhere. So maybe you have a CEH captain and then you have a Ravens onslaught perhaps. Ravens defense is down here at flexed 13% of the time. I can't, and then 10% of the time for Kansas City Chiefs. So that is a way to get contrarian on most slates, but as we all know, that's not going to work on this slate. I would be surprised if either of them really had positive points, to be honest with you. So Sammy Watkins down here at 15%, only captain at 2.2%. You got the revenge narrative. You've got healthy Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins pulled through for you last week, but if you remember before that long touchdown, it was not really a Sammy week. He did almost hit the bonus, and it was good to see him open deep. He looked fast, which has been a while before we've seen Sammy Watkins look as fast as he was when he came into the NFL. So Sammy's not a terrible play in this spot, especially if Marquise Brown is not 100%. He is not on the injured report, as I said. However, he was injured most of the week. So that's a decision point there as well if you want to go Sammy or Brown or both, playing into the fact that Devin Duvernay might not play. You could go Lamar, Brown, Watkins, CEH at captain, and maybe then Tyreek Hill in the flex as well. So we'll build here in just a moment. Let's build before we go to our custom lineup. So we've got DraftKings right here, and let's just go around. Edwards-Helaire is going to have to be, I mean, I'm not excited about his usage so far. People who drafted him aren't excited about his usage so far. I fully understand that, but you're not going to win a tournament by just doing all of your favorite things. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is great leverage in this game. And then we're going to go Lamar Jackson. Let's double stack with Watkins and Brown. So right now we have CEH at captain, Lamar Jackson, Sammy Watkins, Marquise Brown. We have 5150 still available. I think that Latavius Murray at 5,200 is probably a better play than Tyson Williams, just because it's supposed to be a 50% backfield. So if it's going to be 50-50, give me the cheaper guy. And then that leaves us actually with Mecole Hardman left, who is a fine flyer in any tournament. So the lineup consists of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at captain, Lamar Jackson stacked with Sammy Watkins and Marquise Brown, Latavius Murray, and Mecole Hardman. It's a good leverage play. You're not playing any of the Chiefs' big 3. CEH has to punch in a couple. If CEH punches in a couple, then the big 3 on the Chiefs side of the ball is going to have a really tough time getting there. And then we just need Mecole Hardman to get a big one. So if you're going to play the game where CEH gets 1 or 2 and Mecole Hardman gets a long one, then you have a tough time getting Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce in the winning lineups at their price tag. So that's a very contrarian large field lineup right there. Let's go back to our custom lineups and see how we did. Tyreek Hill is ending up in captain in the main lineup. Again, we have a frequency of 13 for the first 2 lineups. So that's good because you get to kind of pick your poison if you're trying to play the winning lineup or the best lineup every week. You get to pick one or the other. So Tyreek Hill at captain, CEH in flex, Demarcus Robinson in flex, Patrick Mahomes in flex, Mecole Hardman in flex, and then Latavius Murray in flex. So we have a pretty contrarian Chiefs onslaught with just Latavius Murray running back. Definitely an interesting build, something that I could see working just because if we can't get, if Baltimore can't get something done on the ground or done at all, this is just a Chiefs field day. So that's why we're running this one slot. And then number 2 is frequency of 13 again, but it's Mark Andrews as captain, and I almost never go there. At least it's with Lamar Jackson. So if you're going to play a pass catcher at captain, you're probably going to want to go with their quarterback, especially if it's going to be a tight end. So that's got Mark Andrews at captain, Lamar Jackson in the flex, Mecole, Patrick Mahomes, CH, Demarcus Robinson in the flex. It's a 4x2, which is what I want. I like to go 5x1 or 4x2 if I can. I almost never go 3x3. Even in these back and forth games, I usually don't go 3x3 because it's just it gives everyone the warm and fuzzy to go 3x3. So I try to avoid that so that I don't get duplicated very often. I really don't mind this lineup. I just think that I would switch Mark Andrews in for probably, let's see the price here. Mark Andrews' price is $6,200, which means I could probably swap in Sammy Watkins instead. Sammy Watkins is a little more expensive as well. So I guess you're not going to go lower than Mark Andrews on this slate at captain if you want a Ravens pass catcher. And I could see the story that Nick Boyle's out, so you get a few more snaps for Mark Andrews. Like I said, Mark Andrews isn't going to be doing any of the blocking, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to scheme their personnel around getting a larger chunk roll out of Mark Andrews. I'm interested. Let's go back to the inputs and see what Mark Andrews' projected ownership is. Mark Andrews' projected ownership is 30% and only 5% at captain. So he's appearing in captain more often in our simulator than he is actually being rostered for. That's something huge that you're going to want to go back to from here on out when you're using RunTheSims.com. Go back to your ownership and see, are people rostering this player enough to equal the amount of times that he's appearing in the optimal simulation? It's not the end-all be-all. It's not going to win you $1 million just because you compared those two. But it is going to be a big piece of the puzzle, which is what all Showdown slate is. It's just a big puzzle. Let's look at another one that I like. It's going to be a Travis Kelce captain. The only problem with this lineup is that it's got Harrison Butker in it. Now, if you had a kicker on last Showdown slate, then you will be very happy with the Washington and New York Giants game. But in most cases in tournaments, which is what I gear my analysis towards, I'm not going to go kicker. Even in a game that's going to score this many points, I'm usually not going to go kicker. But this is another Chiefs onslaught, and it gets contrarian with Kelce at captain. Kelce at captain is going to be one of the highest owned captains, so you're going to have to do something different. If Harrison Butker is going to come in at low ownership, which we'll check in just a second, then he's a fine play in tournaments. So you have Travis Kelce at captain, Harrison Butker, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Devin Duvernay, and Patrick Mahomes. Of course, if Devin Duvernay doesn't play, you can change this lineup to James Proche and leave the salary on the table to get even more contrarian. Let's go back to Harrison Butker and see what his ownership percentage is. Harrison Butker's ownership percentage, 26%. Not great, not terrible. You're getting just slightly higher ownership than Demarcus Robinson, who's in the same price range. So I probably go Demarcus Robinson there, but I think they're both in the same lineup. So it's an interesting. No, so instead of Harrison Butker, you could go to Demarcus Robinson here for the same salary. So Travis Kelce, Demarcus Robinson, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Patrick Mahomes, and Devin Duvernay. And then if you wanted to, you might be able to switch Duvernay to Proche, switch Mahomes to captain, put Tyreek in the flex. Now you have Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelce, Robinson, Hardman, and Proche. So you're basically just saying that the Chiefs absolutely destroy the Ravens, and the only person that gets something done is, at 200, Proche gets you 2 catches and 40 yards or something like that, and you're sitting pretty. That's another way you could look to approach this. But these games with this high scoring it's fun, and it's exciting, and you're going to have, be at the edge of your seat. You're going to see $800. You're winning 800, and then you're winning 2, and then you're winning 6,000 and every play you're going to shuffle all over the leaderboards, but you have to think outside the box before the game, or else you're going to end up having the same exact lineup as 6,000 friends and splitting $1 million 2,000 ways or something like that. Of course we want to win, but we want to be the only winners, right? So when you're putting these together, focus on your 5x1s, focus on your 4x2s. Think about how the game script could go a little different, because we think it's going to be a back and forth game. For one, the Ravens are at home, so the 4-point spread might be a little bit higher if the Ravens weren't at home. Usually you're going to land 3 points or something like that when you're playing at home. So the Ravens could actually get, beat by a touchdown here or something like that. But the spread indicates that it's going to be close. So most people are going to be playing this back and forth shootout, Lamar versus Mahomes. Well, what if it isn't? What if the game ends up being one in the trenches? What if CEH punches into? What if Latavius Murray punches into? What's our lineup look like then? That's how you're going to have to approach this game. If you just approach it as a gunslinging shootout, I promise you're going to have the same lineup as 6,000 friends. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Run the Sims podcast. I hope everybody has a great Sunday main slate and then absolutely crush it tonight. Peace.